Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 18 of the podcast series. Welcome to any new viewers. It's nice to have you here, and for those of you who are coming back, I really appreciate it. It's been a great couple of weeks reading your comments on the YouTube channel and on the blog and in Ravelry, and I just really appreciate that you all take the time to come here and talk about knitting with me. So you can find me, if you're looking for me, just about everywhere as Knitting the Stash, on Instagram, on Ravelry, and on YouTube, obviously, and on the blog, which is knittingthestash.wordpress.com. Today, I wasn't sure if I'd have a chance to podcast. Our summers are a little busy with lots of festivities and some travel, and it's been a whirlwind of a couple of weeks, and so I'm happy to be here actually talking to you and taking a minute away from the craziness. The cool thing is, I've been in the car for the last couple weeks for hours and hours, so I managed to finish my Ella cardigan along with a couple other things. So I'll talk about that mostly today. I'll talk about the cardigan and Jennifer Wood of Woodhouse Knits. I've got a little farm investigation that's ongoing that I need your help with, and I have the giveaway to announce. The giveaway winner, I should say, for the Moonstone Dyeworks giveaway. So let's get started. I'm going to actually take this sweater and put it on the trusty, I need a name for her, my trusty mannequin here, so that you can actually see it a little bit better. But I wanted you to see the fit first. So this is the Ella cardigan that I've been working on for I think about a month now, and I'll just kind of give you like the full tour. And it fits really well. I did, I think you can see the bottom here. I ended up going with the 12 buttons on there. So I'm just going to pop it onto the mannequin, and then I can talk to you about it a little bit more. All right, the mannequin is fully dressed in her Ella cardigan, and I just want to give you, talk about this for a little while. For those of you who've been following along, you'll probably be happy to see that it's finally done. And for those of you who, for whom the Ella cardigan is new, this is designed by Jennifer Wood of Woodhouse Knits. And Jennifer Wood is known for her lace and cable designs in particular. And when you see the back of this, you'll see why. I saw this sweater first in her newsletter, a little sneak preview of it, and I just knew I had to knit it at that point. So I was waiting for the pattern to drop, and it dropped a couple weeks later. Her newsletter is great though, because you can get coupon codes and little snippets and all kinds of good stuff. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So once this cardigan dropped, I ordered the yarn and started knitting. It is knit in a superwash yarn in the Ski Town Sport in the Platinum colorway. And I've never worked with a superwash yarn for sweaters before. Most of you know I knit my sweaters out of 100% wool of one kind or another for a lot of different reasons. Mostly because I really enjoy spit splicing, let's just be honest. And that's where you join two pieces of yarn together just by getting it wet with spit and then kind of like creating friction, so you're felting it together. I love that feature of wool sweaters. They kind of felt together. You can spit splice them. They are a little more water resistant. There's just so many good qualities about sweaters that are made out of 100% wool. So I was a little skeptical about making a sweater out of a superwash yarn. My experience with this has been really positive though, and I think for certain kinds of sweaters where you're looking for a certain kind of drape or a certain kind of weight and fabric and stitch definition and et cetera, I can see the use of a superwash kind of yarn. Now I would never throw this in the washing machine, but I think the superwash yarn gives it a certain kind of drape that you wouldn't necessarily get with 100% wool. And so I'm really curious to see how it wears and what it's like. The knitting process was great. I did find the stitch definition to be just fine with the superwash. And I had many sweaters that I had thought I might knit, but then I saw that they were knit in a superwash, and I thought changing it over to wool might be a little bit, it would change the kind of quality of the fabric. So anyway, I went for it. I like the results, and I would consider doing it again with a certain kind of pattern. So Jennifer Wood of Woodhouse Knits is known for her her cables and lace. And for those of you who've been watching the podcast for a while, you know that I knit up, I think it was last winter or spring, this beautiful Lothlorien scarf shawl by Jennifer Wood. And this is a pattern where you begin on one end and you kind of go all the way down. Tons of lace and cables in here. And then a seed stitch kind of border. So I was familiar with Jennifer's patterns. She's also the author of Refined Knits, which is an excellent book if you're interested in thinking about lace and cables and how they could go together in some really interesting ways. And now that I've knit this sweater, I'm even more interested in going through some of her designs in this book and thinking about knitting them. There are a couple that the drape on these is kind of incredible. This is one of her shawls here. That's the one that's on the cover of the book. And there's this cardigan, which is called Camilla, which is quite beautiful. But this book is full of cables and lace, so if that's your thing, definitely check out Jennifer Wood of Woodhouse Knits. Okay, so Ella Cardigan. When last you saw the Ella Cardigan, she was sleeveless. She has sleeves now. This cardigan is made up of 2 front lace and cable patterns, and then a sleeve pattern, which you can now see. You could see it better when it was on my arm, but the sleeve pattern runs all the way down to the cuff ribbing there, and it gets continued. And then this is probably the most impressive part of the pattern, which is this massive back cable and lace section, which if you've been watching, you've seen before. So it's a top-down sweater. I've been working on top-down construction this year to try to understand it better. Both of the Alias cardigans that I knit by Isabel Kramer were top-down sweaters, and this one was reminiscent of that for me, given the way that the saddle shoulder is worked and the short rows across the front and the back to create your kind of shoulder and neck shaping. A couple other things to note. I did finish with this has a very simple finish around the neck. Not a big complicated collar. It was just literally like picking up stitches, knitting, purling, binding off. Very simple and elegant kind of collar. I turned the button band since last we spoke. And the button band is this beautiful piece here that you actually knit it twice as wide and then turn the hem on this twisted stitch, which is really terrific. Produces this beautiful button band to which you then attach your buttons. I use shank buttons, and I'm not very good. I'm not very good yet, I think, at finishing work in terms of things like buttons. I tried steeking this year, which worked out well. I've done a bunch of buttons before. It's not my forte. Like sewing isn't really my forte. A lot of podcasts that I watch are these amazing knitters, and they also spin and they also sew, which is beyond me. So I just attach these buttons very simply, but I think it came out pretty well in the back here. There's not too much carnage from my button attachment. I went with 12 buttons. Because I think a sweater that's kind of this fine and refined needed to have small multiples, right? And Jennifer Wood planned this pattern so that the faux cable that runs down this front pattern here, which is very similar to the faux cable on the Alias sweater, it has these holes that are created through yarn overs. So it looks like it's a cable, but it's actually a lace portion of the project because you have a yarn over in here that creates a hole. And so then you can choose how many buttons you want. You have, I think, probably 36 or 48 different holes, buttonhole options, and I decided to go with a button every 3 holes. So that's how I ended up with 12. I wanted the top one to be very close to the top in the collar, and then the bottom one doesn't quite reach the bottom, but if you button the bottom, it all sits very nicely. So I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. Other things I'd say about this, I didn't actually make too many modifications to this pattern, and for those of you who have watched for a while, you'll know that I am the pattern modification master. Like, I love to take a pattern and just do my own thing with it. The modifications I did make were to go up 2 needle sizes. I think the pattern calls for a size 3 needle. I am an incredibly tight knitter, so I went up 1 size for the swatch. It still wasn't big enough. I went up 2 sizes to a size 5, US size 5, and I was still happy with the fabric that I was getting. So sometimes if you go up a couple needle sizes to get gauge, you'll end up creating a fabric that's a little too loose or that doesn't quite do what you want it to do. But I was really happy with the size 5, 2 needle sizes up, and it produced a really nice drape and a good solid fabric. There's not a lot of light and air coming through there. And then the other modification I made is that the pattern calls for about 3/4 length sleeves, about here, with a ribbed cuff, you know, so that it would sit somewhere right around your elbow or a little bit below. And I'm just not that kind of sweater wearer, so I just decided to lengthen the sleeves all the way down to full length, and as you saw, they really comfortably sit kind of right at my wrist with the ribbing. As I mentioned last time, I really love the way that Jennifer Wood manages to take this entire lace and cable panel in both the front and the back and on the sleeves and kind of play it into this ribbing at the bottom so that you don't lose these beautiful 2x2 or 1x1 cables. They kind of run all the way down and break up the ribbing in a really nice kind of way. Same on the sleeves. You have this beautiful saddle, shoulder saddle that comes all the way at the top, all the way down the sleeve, and it runs into the cuffed ribbing there. And so some of the ribbing in that center ends up being 2x2 ribbing, and some ends up being in pattern. And then the back of the cuff is just a simple 1x1 ribbing. Just nice touches like that can really make a difference in a pattern and in a finished kind of garment. So great project, really fun to knit. I would recommend to anyone who wants to knit one, give yourself some time. The knit along that I was involved in for this one is still going. I think it's going until the end of August, so there's plenty of time to get involved in that. And that KAL is actually being run by Jennifer herself. Lots of great support there, some really wonderful folks who are knitting the sweater. There are at least 2 other people that I know of in the group who are in process, that they've posted progress pictures, and they're really beautiful, different colors, different yarns, different fabrics being produced. 2 other folks finished ahead of me, and their sweater's a beautiful one. Looks a lot like mine in terms of the color that she chose, and it fits her beautifully. And the other is kind of bluish teal color, and it's just gorgeous. There's someone right now knitting one in a kind of crimson-y blood red, and that just, I mean, that shows up the stitches beautifully, and it's just such a lovely color. I can only imagine when she puts it on as a sweater, it'll be really beautiful. So the KAL was great and an interesting experience. That was my first KAL. I'm glad to have done it, and I'm glad it was with this pattern because there were a couple moments when I needed a little bit of, I had a couple pattern questions as I went along, and Jennifer has been really great and totally available and wonderful to work with. The pattern calls for 4 skeins of the polka dot Ski Town Sport. And I ordered 4 initially, and then I thought, oh god, I want to make it a little longer, and I want the sleeves to be longer. I should probably order an extra skein, so I did. And that skein is still sitting in my sweater bag, untouched, after everything, after the lengthening of the sweater, lengthening of the sleeves, and the sewing on of all the buttons. This is all I have left of the yarn. So I consider that quite a sweater success. I do have 1 other skein left over, but it can be for some other project. Yeah, that's it. Tiny, tiny amounts of yarn left over from this sweater project, so pretty great. Yeah, so that's Ella, and I love Ella, and I will be wearing Ella a lot. I think she's gonna be a good work sweater for me. She's also the first sweater I've knit that is in a very fine gauge, a DK weight yarn, and I think I've always been partial to those kinds of sweaters, and so now it's nice to know that I can knit them and they come out pretty well and they're very wearable, so that's good. Okay, what else for today? I have been in New York for a couple of weeks, and in New York we take a lot of walks, as we do in Illinois, like long walks, like 5 or 6 miles a day, and sometimes longer. But this one walk that we take is kind of around this cabin that we have and down to what's called the Black Diamond Trail, which runs from, if you're familiar with Ithaca, New York, it runs from Cass Park, which is down by the lake, all the way up to Taganic, the Taganic Gorge, which is out kind of near Trumansburg. So we walk down our road a little bit along that path and then back up a different road to get back to the cabin. And on that walk, there's a little mini flock of sheep. And I have been watching them for years and really enjoying them. I think they have about 5 or 6 sheep, adorable, plus a couple goats, plus chickens, and they're all just hanging out in this little penned-in area across the street from some beautiful open fields, and they're just really cute. So my husband and I have been trying to figure out what kind of sheep they are, and this time I really took a good look at a few of them, and at least I think there are 2 different breeds there, but this is my investigation and this is my question to you guys. So, and what I will do is try to get some pictures next time I'm out there so I can post them and see if you guys can figure out what kind of breed of sheep they are. Half of them I'm pretty sure are Shetland. And I say that because of the type of their faces, how big they are, what would be a likely kind of sheep for being out there, and the Shetlands that I've kind of met. And then the other half is it's a horned breed, and I haven't been able to quite figure out if, they're ewes that have horns, and the horns come down like this kind of, and they're fairly large, but they're not like a Manx sheep where there's like the extra horns going this way and then the other horns. It's closer to like a Navajo churro or one of the other British breeds of sheep, which would make sense. You'd have Shetlands and you might have another British breed. So maybe you guys can help. I'll try to post some pictures and figure out. I've been just dying to figure out what these sheep are. I could also just talk to the folks. They're not always out there, but we're kind of like lurking and like checking out their sheep, which for some people might be weird. So I will post some pictures at some point, and I will keep looking through my trusty Fleece and Fiber source book to see if I can figure out what these sheep are so I can tell you more about them. But yeah, it's been kind of like on my mind of late. Like, what are these sheep that I see every day? And can I get a fleece? Like, do you sell them? Do you knit? Do you spin? Like, who are you? I need to make some friends with the folks down the road. Okay, so you've heard about finished objects, you've heard about farm investigations, and I have one other work in progress that I told you about last time, that I was planning on starting it. I showed you the yarns for last time, and it's a test knit for Anna of the Dunkelgrün Podcast. She has a new sock pattern out that she's posted about a little bit on social media, so I know it's okay to talk about it. And for this sock, I think I showed you I am using 3 different yarns. And one's from, I'll show you the colors here in the bag, so I don't have to take them all out. One is from Knitting in France. That's that pink one that I used for the Gansey socks. This is a Walking Dead mini skein from LB Art Yarns. And this is an Eden Cottage Crafts 100% BFL that I picked up when I was in England. Here's the tag for that, if you can see it maybe. And the Eden Cottage Crafts 100% BFL, and this is the colorway Salvia, that's the purple. I've never worked with 100% BFL, though I hear it's perfect for socks because it's a stronger, longer wool. But in the skein, I must say, in the skein it felt soft, and then when I pulled it out and caked it up to use it for the socks, I must say that it felt a little bit ropey, a little bit stringy, a little bit like, is this gonna work out? Like how hard a wearing sock is this gonna be? And then I started knitting it up, and I'm not exactly sure if it's the yarn itself or if it's Anna's beautiful pattern with cables, but sometimes I wish there were like smell-o-vision for like the food shows on TV, and I wish there was like touch-o-vision so that you could reach in here and just feel the squish of this sock. But this is how it's coming out so far. This is Anna of Dunkelgrün, her new test sock pattern, and it's not really, let me see if I can get it to, there we go, that's a little better. So it's these beautiful cables, and I just wish, I'm trying to figure out how I can like show you how squishy this yarn is, all cabled up like this. So I've been really surprised, and these feel like they are going to be amazing socks, really soft, really fun. And I've also it's given me an excuse to learn a little bit more about cabling without a cable needle. So with this sweater, I was cabling without a cable needle for any of the 1x1 cable crosses. There's a great technique for just crossing those with your needles with no trouble at all, so you don't have to use a cable needle. I was using a cable needle for any of the 2x2 crosses because I'm paranoid, and because I was using metal needles and a superwash yarn, so it was very slippy. But these cables, I've now figured out how to cable 2x2s without a cable needle if I need to, and that seems like a revelation. So pretty happy about that. And I love this pattern. Anna, if you're watching, great job on the pattern. The socks are turning out beautifully. I'm just about to work the heel flap with the different colors, and I think it's going to work out super great. I love these colors together. I know they're very different than the ones that she put together for her pattern photos, but I think these are fairly complementary to each other, so that's cool. So that's underway, and I think I'll be able to get that done in the next couple weeks. So socks, yeah. And that Rebel shawl, the brioche shawl, I haven't put it on the needles yet because I was so obsessed with this guy. But that's on the horizon, along with maybe a simpler kind of pullover with some cables, something to just kind of keep me busy. Okay, I think that's it. Most of my effort and attention was with this beautiful sweater for the last couple of weeks. So she's my main squeeze now. I do have the Moonstone Dyeworks Giveaway winner to announce. And this is Moonstone Dyeworks. For those of you guys who didn't see the last podcast, this is Tommy Trujillo, and she is a podcaster of Squirrel Pie Productions. Hilariously wonderful podcast. Go check her out on YouTube. Great sense of humor, great sense of style. She is one of those podcasters who can sew, and sew really well. So I love watching to see not only what she's knitting or dyeing, but what she's sewing as well. So Tommy sent me a couple of skeins, and she said keep one and give one away. So we had 62 comments on the podcast last time. Thank you so much. And it was so nice to hear not only what you guys liked from Tommy's shop, but also comments about that that bit I said about when you finish up a big lace and cable project, when you come to the end of it, it's kind of like, oh, it's a little bit of a slowdown on the highway, kind of like, wow, but I don't want it to end. So there were a lot of comments of people commiserating with that kind of experience, so thank you for that. But we had 62 comments. And the winner of the random number generator was a comment from Nancy Smith. And Nancy said, I'm really enjoying your podcast, Melissa. Still have a bunch to watch to catch up, but I thought it would be wise to jump to the more current ones. I'm also a Dunkelgrün fan. Yay for Anna of Dunkelgrün. I'm considering tackling the Ella sweater. It's beautiful. Thanks for introducing me to it. It was a bit hard to choose a favorite colorway from Moonstone Dyeworks, but if I could only pick one, it would be Moon Age Daydream in the Stella sock yarn. Beautiful. So Nancy, you are the winner, and I'm going to be sending you, since you like the Moon Age Daydream colorway, which was a little more purpley, I'm going to send you the purpley skein of yarn. So I've left you a little comment on YouTube with my email address. Get in touch with me and I will get this in the mail to you. And I'm really looking forward to knitting up this other skein of beautiful yarn. Probably gonna be some socks, maybe a shawl, I'm not sure. Tommy, I'll have to let you know. But thank you so much to Tommy Trujillo of Squirrel Pie Productions and Moonstone Dyeworks for sending along such beautiful yarn for sponsoring the podcast and this giveaway. And I hope you all enjoyed checking out her shop and all of her beautiful indie dyer work. So that is it for today. And thank you all for coming by. It's lovely to chat with you. It's always lovely to have a finished sweater to show you. And I hope you're all well this summer and have some fun adventures wherever you go. And I will see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.